she's not just award-winning in GA. You see, she's incredible. Okay, so how are we doing for time, actually? I'm having the time of my life here. I don't even know. Who's got the time? Some of you didn't switch your phones or...
20 minutes.
20 minutes, my God. Okay, let's keep it moving. All right, so, you know, Nnedi, you spoke about female empowerment, but I always get this question, is feminism for everyone? And it's something that's come up a lot now that we started making the distinction between white feminism, which can be a little, you know, antagonistic for, you know, black or queer women. And it's a question that comes up all the time. We talk female empowerment, but is feminism for everyone, according to you? Whoever wants to go can go first.
Professor.
Professor?
Yes, that's what I was going to... Go ahead. Sure.
Yes.
Yes.
Just like that.
Feminism is for everyone. Feminism with a small f, feminism with a capital F, yes.
Professor?
Yes. It is. It only makes sense. It only makes sense. It is for everyone, and I mean there are different types of feminism, but yes, it is for everyone. Yes.
Even the males.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh yes.
Yes.
Because you know, I feel like we don't realize how patriarchy is a jail for all of us, including men.
Yeah.
Don't men want to walk around holding their friends' hands and wearing whatever they want to wear and not being weaponized from a young age? Like, isn't that something? Speaking of which, you see how we've just come to this now, Pumla. I was stalking you as well, and I was listening to a podcast that you were interviewed by Nnedi, I think it was, and you said something interesting. You said rape is not a moment, but a language. And I didn't hear anything thereafter because I was looking around for a piece of paper to write this down, because this book, I've told you, has been stolen 3 times, and you say the things that we're struggling with, but you say it so plainly that it's kind of like, yeah, okay, no, you've got it. So can we talk about rape being a language?
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that in South Africa, as in many places in the world, we and I think maybe part of why we're not winning the war against rape, and why rape culture is globally is kind of just morphing and mutating into this kind of thing that's in hit songs, right? That people are dancing to in clubs, and we're told, no, it's not really about that. Blurred lines is really quite sexy. It's not rapey. Is because we insist on treating rape like it's a moment. So we insist on treating. Of course, every single rape matters. But to say every single rape matters is not the same thing as saying every single rape. Is not the same as saying let's ignore the pattern. And I think rape is about. It communicates very specific things, and it does very specific work, and it is work that is crucial for patriarchy. It is about communicating who matters and who doesn't matter. It is about ensuring that we police ourselves. It is about disciplining us through fear, right? So if it's a very, very, very powerful way to create meaning, and to create value, and to take away value, and to diminish, and to cut us up into little pieces, and to exile us in our own bodies. So that's part of what I mean when I say it's a language, not a moment. And in South Africa, for example, every time there's a high-profile rape, it's like, oh my God, we can't believe, and we focus on the specifics, and the specifics matter, but the pattern matters, and we ignore the pattern because we pretend very often when we're ignoring the pattern that we are really trying to value the person who survives or dies from or doesn't survive being raped, and we don't pay attention to why it's convenient and what work it does, and so on. And so I think it's so when I say it's a language, I mean, that's part of what I mean.
Yeah.
I think I mean more than that as well, but it took me a whole book to try to say what.
Speaking of the book, please open a page and read for us. This is one of the most important South African books I've ever read. In fact, I don't just want to say South African. This is one of the most important books I've ever read. And I'm happy to say that the 3 times that it has been stolen, it's been stolen by men. So Pumla is actually doing the work. She's doing the thing.
So I'm also torn like Yewande. I was going to read the part that you marked.
Highlight,
but
yes.
No, I will not be pressured. I'm going to read another
conversation.
part. Because the part that you is where I go on my little thing about women's empowerment. You know, in South Africa when people say women's empowerment, it's kind of pretend feminism, but that's actually anti-feminist. But I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
I'm going to read something else, and I'm sorry if one person in this room was in another place where I read this particular one. Sorry, it's just the one I'm going to read. In the winter of 2013, feminist Lebu Pule shared a story about being in a shop in the Johannesburg CBD where a young man harassed a young woman. It is a familiar sight where violence, gender, and sexuality rub up against one another. As Pule looks on, the young man tries to get the young woman's attention by calling out to her, addressing her in increasingly direct ways. When she continues to ignore him, his aggression grows. He starts to goad her. Although she does not utter any words, she communicates a disinterest in his attention through her body language, a language that is recognizable to Pule and the other spectators in the shop, and also one clearly understood by the young man in pursuit. She does not speak back. When he persists, she walks away, all the while refusing to return his gaze. In various ways, hers is an attempt to pretend he is not there, to wish him away and to create distance between them. This clearly communicates that his attention is unwelcome. When she realizes that none of this will have the intended effect, the young woman turns around and pointedly informs him that she is not interested in talking to him and that he should leave her alone. She tells him to go away. He says, "This is why we rape you." An enraged Pule intervenes, interrogates the man, asking him first, "How is this why you rape women?" And then, "How many women have you raped?" Increasingly, the rest of the shop watches in slight shock at Pule's confrontation of the young man. They find her behavior strange, are surprised that she intervened and will not let it go, making the young man uncomfortable. They are so accustomed to this kind of behavior that it is not the young man's threats that are strange, but Pule's refusal to let him continue. The shopkeepers keep quiet. The harassed young woman turns around and tries to console and reassure Pule, telling her, "Don't get yourself worked up, my sister. We're used to these dogs speaking to us like this. They are rubbish."
Whoa, okay. I do believe the 3 of you are very important. I promised myself that I would leave my fangirl at the door and be very professional, but I love you all so much. I really do. So, comrades, I'm now recognizing you. Where's Mervyn? Mervyn, are you here?
He's at the back.
Can I just ask for maybe 10 minutes extra, because I know the comrades are very excited and I want to recognize as many as I can. So please, Mervyn, give us 10 minutes today, just an extra one. But if you have any questions, I'm ready to recognize you. Look there, there's a sister there who wants to say something.
I'm very interested.
Oh, I think they want to give you a mic. I can hear you.
Yeah, I can.
I'm very interested to hear your views on polygamy.
Whose views?
Whose? All of us. Views on polygamy.
Views on what?
Polygamy. Hi, Mohale. Hi. What's wrong with you, my sister? Does anybody have views on polygamy? I feel like my architect friend or my professor friend.
The polygamy that's actually practiced?
Yeah, the polygamy that's actually practiced. Yes.
Why do we hear black women and talk feminism and now we talk polygamy every time?
Now, you see, I just want to recognize everyone, but I'm recognizing you as well. I'm recognizing you as well. Does anyone want to take the question? Because if you've got nothing to say on it, we can recognize another person.
Nothing that strikes me as particularly intelligent.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, nobody has any real thoughts. No?
Maybe looks like
Someone should say something.
There are a bunch of thoughts.
say something. But I mean, I kind of
I'm the chair here, I don't have to say anything, I'm just...
I could give you a reading assignment. I don't even mean it that way, but just, I was thinking of Lola Shoneyi and her book, Secret Lives of Baba Segi's Wives.
Excellent read.
That's another book you should get. Okay.
One thing I will say is that in the instances of polygamy that I have seen, it has been problematic. It's mainly the women fighting amongst themselves. There's a lot of infighting. It's the children grow up hating each other and fighting with each other and competing with each other. And the man, these are just in the instances that I have seen.
Yeah.
The husband is the most important thing ever to everybody, and then the kids are all fighting amongst themselves for scraps, and the women are all angry. So in the instances that I have seen, it has not worked. And it's the instances that I have seen have been practiced in modern society where it is not necessary. Yeah.
Pumla, you want to say
And then
something?
I don't have anything to say that I could say in a few minutes, but I do spend quite a bit of time on it on kind of multiple partnerships and polygamy and polyamory in a renegade, in one of the chapters in a renegade called Simpiwe. So
Another book you should get.
have anything, so yeah, just
I'd like to recognize somebody else. But did you want to say something? I want to recognize somebody else. Over there, I can't see you, babes, but I feel like you're wearing a hat. Oh, I hope it's not your hair. Oh, it's your hair, babes. Oh, it's your hair. Oh, it's your hair. And it's you, Nina. Nina, we know each other, so please don't be mad at me.
Please don't be mad at
You're in the shadows, babes. That's easy. No, I'm sorry, Nina. Oh, I'm so embarrassed. That's easy, Nina. I'm so sorry, Nina, babes. Oh, excuse. Oh my God, Nina, please speak, babes. I recognize you.
Okay. It's my big ass hair, for which I make no apologies. And this is a question that's been forming in my mind for the last 3 weeks when I thought about what am I going to hear about feminism and who's going to be in the room. And women are taught to own their sexuality privately. And I alluded to this yesterday in your session when I was comparing Gqola and Makosha in your novel, that men they tend to be roped into our sexuality when, yay, we are pregnant, or phew, we are not pregnant. And any thoughts on how we can involve men in women's sexuality right from the beginning, because it's something you embrace for your entire life, and whether you'll be married or not, it implies many different things at the different points in your life.
Thank you, Nina. Anybody? Yewande, you look like you're ready to say something.
No, I mean I'm thinking, because I think these are questions, and so I don't know that I have an answer. But one of my immediate thoughts when I heard the involved men part was I wasn't sure what you meant, because I feel they're too involved. But then I thought maybe I'm not hearing your question in a certain way, because there's a way that they are involved. I mean, there's the we're pregnant, we're not pregnant thing, but there's a way that there's an insertion, and part of what the revolution is excluding. That's also, and when you were talking about sex with yourself, I mean there's something that's deeply, and often the reason you know that is because it's seen as a threat. You know, the absence of the penis or the man, or you don't need that for pleasure. And so that's what I was thinking. But I didn't want to, because I think you also may be asking something else, so it's cut in a different way.
Make them comfortable and not feel threatened or...
Yeah, I don't know that I have the energy or time to spend on that, because someone else was saying earlier, there's so much really important work, that the work of making a man comfortable in a world that's made for him is really not good.
Absolutely. And they already take so many liberties at telling us what to do with our reproduction and how to be sexy but not too sexy. So I mean, nah.
Walk on.
Anybody else?
Yeah, not really something that I want to invest in either. And also just to say that, we're not, men aren't necessarily who you necessarily want to make comfortable in relation to your sexuality as well, right? So, yeah, I mean, I'm not sure how you make them comfortable or
I feel like they're already too comfortable.
But I also feel like, Nina, I feel like you're saying something that I'm not hearing.
That's what I thought.
So part of me wants to say, well, no, that's not my project. I'm not interested. But part of me feels like that's not actually what I'm not hearing you.
Yeah.
And I feel like you're asking something important and more substantive, and I'm hearing, I'm not hearing it. So I don't know if
differently and communicate it in another forum.
Sorry, because I don't want to be,
Nina,
and also because, you have little people on the phone, so.
Thanks, Nina. Anybody else up there? Oh, the people up there. Hello. There's somebody there that's wearing red. And I'm not going to talk about hair because I've got the lights in my eyes. Over there, my sister. Yes.
I just wanted to find out, because I feel, thank you very much for the panel and the discussion, but I feel that when the question feminism was asked, that is, feminism is for everyone. I find that the academic feminists seem to exclude the woman on the grassroots, on the ground. Your mother, your grandmother is not in the discourse. And I find that the language barrier and education has divided women more and more apart. Despite the policies and everything else that happens, I find that women, even as black women, we pull each other down. And then when we look at the global north, global south kind of thing, it even gets, the gap gets wider. How can we bring each other together? Besides people talking about us and poverty and being poor, and how do we fight our struggle in that feminism? I know it's very long.
Anybody? Professor, my architect friend. I think what Nnedi said was, feminism is for everybody, but she said there's different types. And that was something that struck me, because for a long time there was a certain kind of feminism that didn't really deal with the things that affected me, and that's when I gravitated more towards black feminists, and then South African feminists, people that were in the same situation as me. But when you're talking about the language thing, that's very, very important, because last week Zeksimda said a revolution that's led in English, specifically in South Africa, will only be a middle class revolution.
I think that's a very interesting, because I don't come to feminism. By the time I come to the academy, I was already a feminist, and the people who brought me to feminism and gave me the name and gave me the language were not academics. And in fact, even the sense of kind of the alienation within feminism that I then start to feel and kind of think about the different kinds of feminism comes to me much later in my academic career. So I'm not, and I don't think that I'm that unique. I don't think that most feminisms in the world necessarily come to feminism through academia. I think most feminists in the world come to feminism through movements that are outside the academy. And those movements aren't necessarily kind of uniform and even when they use the word feminism, everything that they're doing is not necessarily happening in English or happening in one way. And I think, in fact, if anything, what has allowed me to have the kind of feminism that I have, and to identify, to qualify it in the ways that I qualify it when I qualify it, has everything to do with the fact that Something about the way in which the feminism in the academy initially came to me felt odd. But I mean, that was great because I already was, by the time I'm doing graduate work, I've been calling myself a feminist for 10 years, for 9 years, for 8 years. So I'm very suspicious of this kind of notion that feminism is something you get in the academy. Which is not to say that I don't think there's anything wrong with people who come to feminism in the academy, but I think that it sometimes gets too much space in terms of the story of feminism in the world. I don't think most, and certainly my experience of movements in this country or anywhere else, contradicts this idea that we all get, or the bulk of us become feminisms in kind of women's studies or in school or in, and so on.
Especially since we all spoke about when was the first time you saw that something in the milk ain't clean, or whatever that saying is. You see how I'm just running with this now, I don't even know the saying. But it was something about milk and not being clean. Anyway, hi up there. Oh, hi, sir. Oh, I'm coming to recognize you now. Yes.
I was wondering what you think about what I would call patriarchal feminism in the case of like the Sheryl Sandberg lean-in type of ideology where everything is for the corporate hegemony and these poor female CEOs should be equally paid while they're not concerned at all about working women. It just seems utterly hypocritical. So.
I didn't quite get that.
Well, what I'm saying is that there's this whole class of idea of these women that say, oh, these women in the corporate world need to be paid, be on boards, but they're not actually fighting for the rights of women that these corporations are stepping on. They're actually working to oppress them. They want to be, it says, just like men.
So they want to be honorary men.
They have equal value in the male patriarchal world. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you want to talk about women who are in cahoots with capitalism and want to be honorary men as opposed to empowering everybody. So when you're the CEO, you're fighting for your CEO pay and not for everyone in the yes, my sister. Yes, my sister.
Well, I mean,
mine is a short answer.
No, okay.
Which is
a better answer.
No, I was just thinking that there's a way that we also take things down to the individuals, and then we villainize people, and particularly when it's women, because we haven't done it with the men, right? But with the women, oh, you're a woman. How come you didn't hire that person? How come you didn't give her this or whatever? We're saying, you're a woman, you should. And I mean, that's okay, and maybe you want to have that conversation, but it's distracting from where the real work is, because the thing about patriarchy is that it's not actually at the level of villainizing a person, okay? Because that person, they have whatever their own narrative and story is. And what do we look at and it's so much harder. So I mean, I don't have an answer, but we'd rather do that than deal with the structure,
the bigger system,
the bigger thing.
Yeah.
And so that's what I would say to that I don't think it's constructive to just make those women wrong and get on that bandwagon, because that's just distracting us from what we actually should have been doing in the first place.
And the phrase patriarchal feminism has just been sitting here confusing me. It just doesn't make sense. And also, why is it that a woman who is trying to be aggressive in her career, why is that equivalent to wanting to be like a man? Yeah. That's what I was thinking. Because what?
Because it's a patriarchal structure that she's
Hang on, I'm going to recognize you. I'm gonna recognize you, order.
I don't think you can have patriarchal feminism. That kind of, you have patriarchy and you have feminisms, and you have different kinds of feminisms. And I think that, that's the first thing. The second thing is, I don't know why we expect to be nice, but I think it's an unrealistic expectation to say that every single woman who's successful in the world is automatically a feminist. So I don't think that even if we were going to say some women are patriarchal, and we all grew up in patriarchy, So none of us are outside of it. I don't think that kind of holding women responsible for patriarchy is helpful. I think that they're powerful women, and some of them are feminist, and some of them aren't as convinced of feminism, and some of them are not not feminist. And I think, I think power is complicated. I'm very uneasy with kind of holding specific powerful women responsible for patriarchy.
That's patriarchy.
That's patriarchy. That's patriarchy holding women responsible for why we don't ask the same questions of men in these positions, regardless of the politics that they espouse.
Mervin's going to kick us out, so I'm just going to take a few more questions. I believe there was someone down here. Evelyn, she's got a mic. Yes, lady.
Hi. So I was just going to ask, of course, the majority of the audience here are women. So as a student and as a young person, how can we try to get more men to engage in this kind of discourse?
Anybody?
Yewande.
Yewande does this thing with her eyes, and then you know she's ready.
No, like the muscles just do it all.
You did the eye thing.
No, but I don't. It just does it involuntarily. So I don't have an answer. So I'll just say again when you were talking and what I thought the minute you finished, which was that I've been. This is the 4th festival I've been in about 10 or 2 weeks. In different parts of the world, and we've had a conversation. There are 2 conversations we've had where we're talking about a similar conversation like this. We're talking about women, or in one we were actually talking about sexual harassment in creative spaces, and there were men present, and very quickly the conversation was this particular conversation. Was a man got up and was like, women have to start reporting. I've got the answer. Women must be courageous. You must report. Come to me. And this kind of Superman complex.
Because that's all that was lacking, courage.
Courage. Rape culture. So I've been thinking of this thing of men because like we're saying, I'm not someone who thinks men aren't feminists and all that kind of thing, but there's a place where the conversation just breaks down, and we couldn't get through to the brother, and we were all saying to him, what he doesn't understand is that happens and then it doesn't work. So now what? And he's like, no, we'll come, and so I think you ask an important question, but the answer to that is really difficult. We left that particular panel, and I thought we need a whole festival on this. Because the time we took, it was not enough, and it was just this block. He was convinced he had the answer. So I suppose I'm kind of distilling that to an experience to respond to your question. I think it's an important one. I thought we would have got more done maybe if he wasn't there. There's a part of you where like, we don't know what to do though, So then we spend all this time trying to, the comfort thing, or if that was what you were pointing to.
Now saying, no, my brother, it's not courage.
At the same time, 50% of the 49% of the planet. Right, sorry guys, it makes it sound like we have to take it on. But at the same time, we're human beings, we're partners, so it's important because this can add to the cause. But for me, I just think it's hard work. That's my experience in having these conversations. It's hard work, or my gran would say, hard ears. You're not listening, hard ears.
Nnedi, you sounded like you want to say something.
I think from a literary perspective on things, it's like when I'm writing these characters, these strong female characters, it is something that I think about. I do think about male readers, and it's like, and then I think about it for a second, and then I stop thinking about it. One, I just don't feel like it's my responsibility. I mean, I do agree, 49%. That's that's 49%. But you can't do it on your own. I think that the stories that I'm writing are there. I can't force men to read it. I know these issues exist where, like, publishers will say that, like, especially in young adult writing, that boys will read, or girls will read books about boys just fine, and boys will read books about boys, but boys will not read books about girls, you know. And so how could you make, and just ask that, it's the same question, how can you make boys read books about, with a girl main character, with a girl on the cover? How can you make that acceptable? And the only thing that I can think of is just writing the best story that I can and hoping that there will be some trickling in of male readers. And I don't think the solution is to take the girls off of the cover. I don't think the solution is to add a side character. I don't think that's the solution. Well, like you said, it's very complicated, but it's not hopeless. No, it's not hopeless.
I'm looking at Mervyn back there. How are we doing? Have I taken my extra? Okay, 2 minutes. There's a lady here and then one back there. I hope we'll cover this 2 minutes and then I'll stop recognizing people. Yes, my sister.
Oh God, this is a lot. Just to refocus a little bit. No shade intended. But I just want to know from all of you, kind of in a short way, since we don't have time, but also Mohale as well, how do you cultivate feminist joy when we're constantly doing this hard work of fixing the world and trying to get to a better future?
Yeah.
Where do you cultivate that joy, that replenishment that keeps you going? Because I'm in a rut and I hate the world and I want to kill everyone, and so I would like to hear from someone older than me where the joy comes from and how that replenishes it.
A little old, I guess, is why now. Older. That's a very good question.
Pumla.
Professor.
Kavura, thank you for that question. It's a hard one, but it's an important. I mean, that question feels like a gift to me, because it's a question that we, so thank you for asking it. One of the things that I do, I cultivate feminist community. A lot of my friends are feminists. Actually, all my friends are feminists. Don't know why I said a lot. All of my friends are self-identify as feminists and do feminist work in the world. And I think that part of what that, and we all try to parent in feminist ways and partner in feminist ways, and sometimes we fuck up, and sometimes we're great. But I think that it's important. I think it's important to create spaces and to allow ourselves the space to be with people around us who are the same kind of weird, who speak the same kind of language, who are invested in the same kind of project. And I have found that part of what that offers is that it constantly surprises me in terms of the opportunities for insanity, but good insanity. Not bad insanity, like insanity that causes trouble in the world, but that is nourishing. I find that it allows me to, in many ways, to kind of put my guard down in ways that the world doesn't enable. It enables me to learn things about myself and about people, and to explore things, and to laugh and to discover kind of humor and pleasure and experimentation and possibility, and to dream in ways that I probably wouldn't be able to. So that's part of what is important for me. Now, of course, I also recognize that not every feminist can be your friend. Right? And that's fine. People can be your sister. Not every sister has to be your friend, because just because we all committed to the same project doesn't mean, we're all quirky in different ways, right? But it helps if the people that you choose to bring to your life are kind of, their quirkiness and their craziness kind of complements your own. And that's I found that to be an incredibly powerful, for me, a nourishing way of cultivating that joy. In fact, discovering things that I didn't even know could be sides of joy within that.
So you're saying find your tribe and love them hard.
Amen.
I think that one thing that I find great feminist joy in is just creating these characters that I've been writing. I've created these women who just destroy things. They really, really destroy things. I get great joy out of that. I find joy in the fact that I wrote a novella about an African girl who goes into space to attend the finest university in the galaxy, and that it won 2 of the biggest science fiction awards. I get great joy out of that. Especially in a climate that really frowns upon such things. So I just find great joy in creating these characters and putting them out there and seeing all the trouble and things that they cause. I just find great joy in that. Yeah.
I like that. Yewande?
I mean, similarly, I think a lot of the joy I experience is very linked to my work, and a deep sense of gratitude that I found this work and that I can do it. And a big part of to write is to look and to observe. And so a lot of the joys I experience are from things I see. Of course, there's so much one sees that is tragic and painful, which brings me to the other bit with what you're dealing with. I mean, my understanding at some point was that, we're always, there's, my capacity to experience joy is also very connected to my willingness to experience pain and sadness, and so, and the work that comes with that. So you do that work, and then you suddenly realize you have this bigger space for a bit more joy, and then you drop again, and so there's this, and being okay with either, which then creates there's room for life, because that's how it goes.
I'm just going to be really brief with this. I work with children, and they're grade 2 and 3 children who fall behind in the class because they're sitting 40 and 50 in a class, and they don't know the alphabet when you start off. So it's always a little tricky, because you're like, well, the teacher's gone A, B, C, D, whatever. So then I just dump this, these bunch of toys on, and I go, okay, I don't know what we're going to do, but just pick up the dinosaur and make it go buh, 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 buh. And we spend 2 weeks going buh, 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 buh with different animals. And to see a kid go from not knowing the alphabet to 6 months later when we're reading the little readers, and you see the word because coming up, and you're like, oh, and you want to jump in, and he just goes, thank you, teacher, I know this one. Because Adam went to the party. And for me, there's no greater joy than working with children. That is my real passion. So I work with these little badasses who often give you flu and kisses. Just sloppy kisses. But I always need to remember that I used to be a little badass like that, and that's really what gives me joy. And I know I said I would take one more question, but I feel like Mervyn is somewhere here now, and he's going to usher us out. So I'm sorry to the person there in the corner. Ah, there he is. Oh my God. So I want to say thank you very much to Yewande. Thank you to my professor friends. Hopefully Yewande and I will be professors one day. And thanks to Leopard Leap for, the wine. Now we are really going to turn up and have wine because the work is done. Thank you so much, and thank you to Open Book and Mervyn and you.